Now we're moving into a word from our sponsor and the sponsor perspective portion of the program with the Canadian American Business Council. For that, I'd like to welcome to the stage former Congressman Charles Boustany and Mary Scott Greenwood, CEO of the Canadian American Business Council.
Center stage, my
Center
friend.
stage.
Thank you,
All
Katie.
right.
Hello, Congressman.
Hello, good to be with you.
Good to be with you. Hi, everybody. I think I'll put my water right here. Let's see who kicks it first. You get the over-under on that. Thank you so much for joining us today. I don't know if everybody knows that you're a doctor as well as a former member of Congress. So I want to focus our short conversation on a sector that I know is near and dear to your heart, and that's life sciences. We saw the president last week came out with his proposal on medicines. Canada is debating their own proposals on pharmacare. So the pharmaceutical industry employs over 4.7 million people in the United States, supports over 30,000 jobs in Canada. In my research for this, the economic activity in Canada is $19 billion north of the border, and it's $75 billion every year here. So it's a really important element of our economy. So what I wanted to start with, Congressman, is do you see any policy developments, particularly in Canada, as you look around the world, that could either help or hurt this particular sector?
Well, I think, first off, it's very important to get a good NAFTA agreement with IP protections in place and to really modernize this agreement. The time is now. It's got to get done. But one of the things I'm very worried about is somebody who spent a long time in healthcare and saw the advances in innovation that came about from research and development. I'm concerned about some of these behind-the-border regulatory issues. For instance, in Canada, the Patented Medicine Price Review Board is looking at how to price new pharmaceuticals coming into the market. And I think the way they're going about doing this could have a negative impact on research and development and innovation and ultimately access for patients to these life-saving medications. I mean, basically you have the importance of research and development in this area. And for economies like Canada and the United States and others that want to be innovative economies, want to promote research and development, want to promote the development of intellectual property, it's important to have intellectual property protections, but it's also vitally important to look behind the border at regulatory issues that could have a stifling effect on this type of innovation.
I guess the industry has raised some concerns about that pricing structure, and the worry, if I understand you right, is that Canada could become, if it doesn't get the policy just so, it could become a place where drug companies are less likely to list their drugs or to launch in Canada. Is that basically the issue? That's
an issue, and it will also have an impact potentially on developments in Canada as well.
The R&D, yeah.
R&D in Canada, but also the launch of drugs, say, from companies that may be based in the United States. And we've seen some figures suggesting a 25 to 30% reduction in investment and so forth as a result of this, and as much as a $26 billion hit to the industry in Canada. Jobs would be at risk. And this is, I think what we need to be doing is looking at how do we better pull this together between the United States and Canada, because we're not competing against each other. We want to see North America be the R&D capital, really, or platform for global trade and commerce.
Well, Canadian American Business Council, we are all about Canada and the United States collaborating versus competitors against the world. So a couple more quick questions. I had the pleasure of seeing you in Montreal on the margins of that negotiation. It seems like a long time ago, but you were talking about IP, intellectual property protection, the importance. I wonder, when you look at the world and you look at whether it's TPP or other trade agreements, what do you see? What's the future? Where are we going? And is there any hope that we get some new trade agreements?
Well, this is a key issue, and frankly, I think the pace here in the United States has been far too slow in what's going on. The United States pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership without an alternative. The NAFTA negotiations have been very protracted. In my mind, this should have been a fairly quick modernization effort, but yet it's focused on a number of irritants that have really bogged this whole thing down. The world's not standing still. There are 350 trade agreements worldwide today. These are regional agreements, bilateral agreements, and so forth outside of the WTO framework. Another 250 or so are under negotiation, and yet the United States is party to 14. And the largest economy is Canada. I think it's the only top 10 economy we have in the context of a trade agreement. The United States needs to be involved and play more offense in this. It's also critically important to set high standards. And this is what was attempted in TPP. This is what the U.S. and Canada could do together with Mexico in the NAFTA agreement. We need to see a real modernization beyond just simple tariff reductions and things of that nature. We really need to see high standards on digital trade, IP, and IP protections, things that promote the innovative economy. And without that, I just think others will write the rules, and it will be problematic for both the U.S. and Canada. So I believe our two countries have a huge opportunity to lead in this effort, and it starts with the NAFTA agreement.
We have a couple minutes left. You mentioned the importance of modernizing NAFTA. Everybody today so far has talked about Speaker Ryan's deadline. You served in the Congress. Is it a real deadline? Is there wiggle room? Like, what's the deal with the deadline? And then I've got one political question and we'll wrap.
Well, Speaker Ryan mentioned that May 17th was the deadline to get something, and that under Trade Promotion Authority, Speaker Ryan's looking at the calendar to try to get this through Congress by the end of the year, the calendar year before the election, for the ratification of any deal that's crafted. So 90 days, there's 90 days before Congress takes this up. The administration has to signal its intent to sign. That means you got to have something out there, and this is a signal to Congress that, hey, negotiations are getting serious. Let's make sure we're all on the same page so that we don't have any hiccups when it comes for Congress to cast that up or down vote on the agreement. I believe there is some wiggle room because 30 days later, there has, based on the end of the year timeline, there has to be an agreement that's been scrubbed, translated, giving Congress 60 days to review it. Then you have the International Trade Commission has to do its review. All these things are built into Trade Promotion Authority. So Speaker Ryan is trying to urge the negotiators to move along. Let's get something done. Let's get this finalized so we can actually get a vote before the election, because there's a lot of uncertainty beyond the election.
So what's the over/under? Are we going to get a notification sometime soon?
I don't know what the administration's going to do on this. I mean, they may signal an intent to sign, but it's still very vague as to what's going to be signed. There's still some major outstanding issues. So I don't know. I don't know.
You're not helping us with the Vegas odds, I got to say.
Yeah, I know it. I know it.
All right. So you're a pro-trade Republican. That's one of my favorite kinds of Republicans.
A dying breed in many respects.
So there's a nominally Republican president in the White House. When he was campaigning, and even now, when he said, it's the worst deal, and I'm going to trade it up, and it's a disaster, did you cringe? Like, what's your reaction when you hear stuff like that coming from the president?
Right. Well, many of us get used to the hyperbole in campaigns, but I had some deep concerns knowing, sort of the history of then candidate Trump's views on trade. And my concern is that when you sit there and you call every deal that's out there the worst deal ever, what are we getting to here? I felt that there's a great opportunity to upgrade, modernize NAFTA, where all three countries would benefit immensely and build off of already what's been done to help all three countries economically in the long run. Secondly, to set up North America as a key platform for R&D and manufacturing. Thirdly, to send a very strong signal that the U.S. is open for business. We're looking at this with our trading partners to set the highest possible standards, hopefully to influence what's going on down in South America with Mercosur and the Pacific Alliance. And if you could build out a Western hemispheric platform, that creates a lot of leverage with high standard agreements that leverage could be used in dealing with China, it could be used in dealing with India and other countries that have not moved up on these high standard agreements beyond simple tariff reductions. So we have a huge opportunity in front of us with a strategic approach to getting these trade agreements done. And my concern is that we're squandering that. But I think that, much of the rhetoric we've heard in the campaign seems to be playing out. And it's really, I believe, hurting America's reputation as a leader in promoting high standard trade agreements.
Well, thank you for that. I'll give you, with a couple of seconds left, any last words before we wrap up and turn the mic back over?
Well, I see the clock's run out on us, but let's get this thing done. I'm hopeful we can get a NAFTA agreement.
That's the theme here. Get her done.
Get her done. There you go.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, Scotty.
Thank you.